You and I got into it when we were on Cuomo's show a couple of weeks ago. Steve Bannon comes on national television with a straight face first and then smirked thereafter, talking about violating the Constitution of the United States, the 22nd Amendment, 2 terms. He said 3. Chris Cuomo says, yo, you understand what the 22nd Amendment says, right? He said, yeah, no, we're working on it. Everybody just glosses over it. Wait a minute. You're a Republican voter out there. I thought your party was the party that preached about the Constitution. I thought your party was the party that said, we're not violating, we're not circumventing, we're not slithering our way through to get what we want. J.D. Vance is the vice president. Marco Rubio is the secretary of state. You've got candidates within his cabinet that are more than qualified to run for re-election. That's not enough. He's a he's a once-a-generation kind of talent. We got to hold on to it. So we're going to circumvent every principle we stood on.
But
and then Bill O'Reilly says this. This is what Bill O'Reilly says.
No, I said it's not going to happen.
I was getting ready to say. You said, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I said, that's not the point. We got to live with the rhetoric and the possibility of him trying to do that for the next.
Yes, Stephen A. Smith, who is talking about running for president himself, is correct when he is just bewildered at the fact that Republicans, who are supposedly all about strict constitutional interpretation, are now silent when Donald Trump is saying that he thinks he can get around the 22nd Amendment, which says you can only serve 2 terms as president. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, former state attorney for Palm Beach County, a.k.a. the Florida lawman here on Legal AF. So we all have seen the stories about how Trump's saying, well, there's ways to get around it. He and Steve Bannon are commiserating, apparently, to try to ignore, work around, defy the 22nd Amendment. Not so easy, because this is not a complicated one. This is something that's in the plain text. It doesn't say you can be president if the terms are non-consecutive. No, you just can't be president for more than 2 terms, period. It is what it says it is. Also, be careful what you wish for, Republicans, because if you allow this exception where Trump can somehow sneak in through the back door, well, then Katie barred the door. How about Barack Obama for a 3rd term? Is that something those Republicans would like? Something tells me the answer is no. But let's look at the text of the 22nd Amendment. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. Okay. I mean, just look at the first clause. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Okay. It is what it says it is. Now, as far as getting around it, well, one thing that the Trump folks are not good at is keeping secrets. So Steve Bannon and Trump, they've already let out some of their plans to try to get around this plain reading of the 22nd Amendment. First, you can try a constitutional amendment, but that would need support from 3/4 of the states. 3/4 of the states. Ain't gonna happen. Plus, you need a supermajority in Congress. That's not happening. So how else can they get around the 22nd Amendment? Well, Trump could perhaps become vice president, let J.D. Vance run as president, and then J.D. Vance resigns, and then Trump becomes president in 2029. If you're thinking, wow, why would J.D. Vance do that? It's because he's J.D. Vance. It's because the party's led by one person. And if Trump says jump, J.D. Vance will say how high. So that's always a possibility. But is that legal to do based on the 22nd Amendment? So the loophole would be based on the word elected in the 22nd Amendment. You see, in the first sentence, it says no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. So that's where the Trumpers are hanging their hat. They're saying elected. It doesn't say hold the office of president. It says elected, and he wouldn't be elected president, although you could say he would be elected vice president, and perhaps that's covered. But, maybe there's an ambiguity there, but that ambiguity is closed off by the 12th Amendment. Here's what the 12th Amendment says, at least the last sentence. The last sentence of the 12th Amendment says, but no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. So if you can't run for a third term for president, you can't sneak in through the vice presidency. It says so in the plain text of the 12th Amendment. So that would seem to be foreclosed. So is it possible then that you have a different ticket that runs for office, and then when that different ticket wins, then they resign, and then someone who is not the vice president, like Donald Trump, could then be named president? I mean, we're getting into the weeds here. But even if that were a possibility, and I would say that it's something that is unlikely, but even that, if that's a possibility, that would mean that political egos, all those people who are desperate to be president themselves, and there's no shortage of that in the Republican Party or any party, quite frankly, they would have to knowingly run for office, campaign, get elected, just to then resign. And the public would have to know that this is the ruse that they're playing. It just seems like very far-fetched. Plus, the question is whether Donald Trump would even want to be president again. Now, my take is that Donald Trump would want to be president again if he was facing criminal charges. If those charges in the D.C. election interference case or the documents case in South Florida, if they were still hovering over his head, I do think he would want to stay in office because then he could escape any criminal trial. But since those cases are all done against him, then I think he'd rather be back at Mar-a-Lago complaining about how the new president is doing a terrible job and how he was the best president ever, while the country has to try to deal with the fallout of Trump's policies, because a lot of the fallout will happen after Trump's gone. There's going to be a lot of picking up the pieces to do. Those tariffs and the reputation around the world and inflation and the sinking stock market, all those things. I think that will Trump want to continue to be in office to own it? Yeah, if he thought he could be president again, but not to go through the fight of having to go through all the courts of the U.S. Supreme Court and have to convince Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett that, yes, the 22nd Amendment and the 12th Amendment don't say what it's clear that they say, and that he should be president again. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that he and Bannon are serious about trying to stay in office, but I think at the end of the day, it ain't going anywhere because of constitutional law and also political ego. Yes, J.D. Vance would clearly, if he could, do anything to help Donald Trump. But at some point, there are others in D.C. who would just say it's time for them, their dream, their destiny to be president. And I do think that if Donald Trump does run for president again a third time, then yes, Barack Obama should run against him. I definitely think that. Because then we really don't have a rule of law anymore anyways at that point, right? If anyone can just defy what's plainly in the Constitution. But I don't think it's going to get that far. I think right now Trump likes us to talk about this rather than the price of eggs or the sinking stock market or siding with Putin over Ukraine. Now Putin is doing Putin things like reneging on deals and exposing Trump and his administration as naive, and I must say this, not the first administration to believe that they could look into Putin's eyes and see his soul. It's just that this administration seems to be overtly pro-Putin more than any other administration we've ever seen, pro-Russia, and it's coming back to bite them every day. And we're going to keep following it here on Legal AF. I'm Dave Aronberg, aka the Florida Lawman. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a comment below. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.